can see that this is post Reagan, post George Bush, Dad Bush, because I mean that we start
Please
to
don't say Dad Bush.
Bush Senior.
Bush. Well, he's not a senior though. That's the thing. He's not senior.
I don't know. You come up with something besides Dad Bush. I don't ever want to hear that again.
Soundstripe.
Another episode of Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast where if you're like us and you miss the days of packed movie theaters and movie stores, then this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Caleb Suggs. Joining me are my co-host, Dakota Lowry.
What's up, everybody?
And Ernie Ferguson.
Boy, oh boy, women are perfect.
And this week, it didn't hit like you wanted it to.
Well, I should have just stuck with boy, oh boy, because he said it all the time.
There was one quote I would have loved for you to go with, but it was like a two-parter. Like you would require someone to say something back to you. So I was going to text you. I was like, we can tag team this one, but I can't even remember what the quote was now. But this week we're doing With Honors, 1994 movie that Dakota picked. Mm-hmm. I was very pleasantly surprised with this movie. I didn't have a lot of high expectations going into it, partly because Joe Pesci. Lukewarm about him. I hated him in Goodfellas. I hated that character. He's okay in Home Alone. I know he's done some other stuff. Like I didn't really like him that much in Lethal Weapon 2. So I just go back and forth with him. But also, I read the description and it said it was a comedy, and I'm saying comedy like with quotation marks. Like I thought, it's going to be another one of those movies we do where they say it's a comedy, but it's not really that funny. But so I didn't have a lot of high expectations going into this, but I like this movie a lot. It also tugged at my heartstrings a lot. I'm forcing a new law: no more sad movies. Because I teared up in this movie. It was sad. It really got to me.
I'm surprised that you didn't like him in Goodfellas. I mean, because we've done that's unfortunately we've done so many of these because we're a high profile podcast.
Hey, we've got tens of listeners.
That he was one of my favorite parts of Goodfellas. I liked him better than De Niro.
Which I didn't like Goodfellas.
Yeah, that's
much
true.
At all. Yeah. But I don't. Part of it's just his voice. A lot of times his voice just it gets on my nerves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't like him much in Goodfellas.
Yeah, I didn't really have a lot of expectations going into this. More because I mean, it has such a low. Because I think it's got a
22
lowest we've done, right?
I think so.
Which is
pretty
funny because we've done, Highlander, which Highlander had 43% or something like that. And then I think the really funny one you would expect the lowest Rotten Tomato score we've done was that Buckaroo Banzai movie just because of what it is. I mean, it just sounds like a nerdy, cheesy sci-fi movie, 80s sci-fi movie that would have a really low score. But no, I mean, I think the next lowest was Days of Thunder, which is...
Yeah, Hudson Hawk was 31 and Days of Thunder was 38.
Okay.
So both of those were in the 30s.
Hudson Hawk. So yeah, look, Rotten Tomatoes isn't the end-all, be-all, but at the same time, if you're looking at a movie that has a 22%, or on the other side, if you're looking at a movie that has a 90%, there's going to be, not all the time is that going to mean it's good or bad, but... there is some merit to it because it's scored off of people that are reviewing the movies.
Yeah, I mean, to give a credit to that, Lost in America has a 95% Rotten Tomatoes.
You brought it up, not me. I was thinking it, but I wasn't going to bring it up this time.
That's the whole thing about movies. I mean, these movies aren't critically acclaimed. Like Hudson Hawks is not a critically acclaimed movie. But it's enjoyable. Was it great? No, it's enjoyable. Same Days of Thunder. Again, at 38, was it critically acclaimed? No. Is it an enjoyable movie to watch? Yeah. So that's where you get the difference between those popcorn scores and those and the Rotten Tomatoes scores. Because Rotten Tomatoes, all the the deep philosophical thinkers of how movies are supposed to be portrayed.
But
They're
the
just
weird part
haughty
about this
taughty with
movie
stuff.
is I was reading some of the critical, like the actual reviews of it, like why it didn't. And it's funny, I talked about not liking Joe Pesci. He was a lot of like the critics that gave this a bad score didn't like his performance, and they thought he was like one of the worst parts of the movie. And then I'm on the opposite side. I thought he
Really?
was one of the
Yeah,
better parts of the movie.
that's what I was thinking. So he was easily one of the best parts in the movie.
At
Well, to
least some of
me,
yeah, at least
one of the
I'm
things we've always talked about is like the peripheral actors. That's what I didn't like in this movie were the peripheral actors. If there would have been more time, with Brendan Fraser and Joe Pesci and just them together, I mean that aspect worked despite of what I thought Brendan Fraser acted in. But like the side characters, I Patrick Dempsey really I didn't like him. The guy I can't remember who was going in working on his MD or whatever his doctorate degree. I was
I
like,
liked
I didn't
Dempsey. I
like
thought
him
he was
either.
pretty funny in this.
Yeah.
He was all right.
When he comes in with the empty cage after he realizes they cooked the chicken and he says, "I have a complaint."
But yeah, I mean, this movie had, I mean, overall, it doesn't really have that high of a rating. I think it has a 74%. Is that what it was? Or 77?
Yeah, for
or
popcorn 74,
yeah,
yeah.
74. And I think at the IMDb was like 67 when I was looking at this before, or like 6.7 or something like that. So, I mean, all around, it doesn't really have a very high rating on it. And so that's why when I picked this, I didn't really feel like it was going to be that good of a movie. I didn't think it was going to be a bad movie, but I didn't really think it was going to be, just some blockbuster off the top. But man, I was sitting here watching this, and even me and Kamei made the comments about it because we had to watch half of it one night, half of it the other night. And even then, me and Kamei both were like not wanting to stop watching the movie, and we were, caught up in the story and caught up in, the Brandon, Monty and Sarah Wilder's, relationship and going through the whole world building and everything. And I was, I mean, I was a lot more captured by it than what I thought.
So why did you? I'm always fascinated to get into your mind of why you pick movies because you're saying that you didn't think it would be good. So why did you pick it?
The classroom scene between between Joe Pesci and the professor, I can't remember what his name was.
The Constitution.
Yeah, when I saw that on TikTok early last week, and it kind of caught my eye, especially talking about, I don't know, the TikTok was talking about a bunch of political stuff, but I was really caught by the movie because I'd never seen a Joe Pesci movie other than the few that we've done, and then I was Brendan Fraser. I wanted to do a Brendan Fraser movie, and I didn't want to pick the Mummy, and it was kind of between this Lethal Weapon and Encino Man.
What have you got against the Mummy?
Oh, Encino Man. Yes.
Well, it's not that I have anything against the Mummy. It's just that I didn't want to come out with another blockbuster just out the gate like that. And then Lethal Weapon was like that was my top three: Encino Man, Lethal Weapon, and the Mummy, and then this. That was my top four. Lethal Weapon was too close to Point Break. Very very similar movies. I didn't really want to do Encino Man, and then I didn't really want to do the Mummy, so it came down to this.
Oh man, Encino Man. Just for Pauly Shore, we should watch Encino Man.
Kamei would love you because Kamei loves Encino Man.
Oh man, that's great. I love it too.
Well, With Honors is a 1994 American comedy drama film directed by Alex Kashishin. It stars Brendan Fraser as a Harvard University student who finds himself at the mercy of the demands of a homeless man when he holds his senior thesis paper hostage. Maura Kelly, Patrick Dempsey, Josh Hamilton, and Gore Vidal also star. The film was released on April 29th, 1994, received generally negative reviews from critics, and grossed $20 million. Doesn't even have how much the budget was, but I can't think it made that much money. I mean, I guess it wouldn't. I guess maybe like this wouldn't take that much to make, but I mean, overall, I would think this movie didn't make much money, if at all.
It says that in the box office it made $20 million, didn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't have what the budget was, so I don't know. Like $20 million against a budget of what? I don't know.
Let's see if a
But
quick
yeah,
Google search can
a quick
tell
Google
us.
search.
Quick Google search.
But yeah, I
Well,
mean, no, go ahead. You're fine.
yeah, it, it's it's one of those things where I think this genre has been lost. I think nowadays of just a simple low budget, which I imagine again the $20 million is probably spent on Joe Pesci, uh,
But
and
that was just
then
what it grows.
Yeah,
It
that's
doesn't
not the
really
budget.
say.
yeah, I mean
It
yeah,
doesn't really say what the budget is.
so but I imagine the majority of their budget goes to Joe Pesci, so but then probably some of the Harvard location scenes too to be able to do that too. But that the simple just 20 million is $20 million. I mean, if that's what you're aiming for, not everything has to be a blockbuster. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
again one of the lost arts of movies nowadays is that it seems like everything has to be a blockbuster. You have to make a bazillion dollars. $20 million
It's
is still $20 million.
it's gotten ridiculous now because I've seen a lot of talk about the movies this summer and the superhero movies because obviously people are going back and forth. They're DC or Marvel or they don't like Superman. But now people are saying basically you have to make like $1 billion and that's to be considered
Mm-hmm.
successful. I mean, there's really a mindset right now where you have to make that much money. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a shame because again, there's a lot of lost art and just I guess this is the thing of people communicating with each other. Like when they have Pesci's character quoting Walt Whitman whenever they at that one party, whenever the girl thought he was the ghost of Walt Whitman, then he sits there and pops off a quote from Walt Whitman, and she doesn't even know that he's doing that. It's one of those things where I'm like, sometimes communication movies. Like that's the whole thing with this movie. Yes, Brendan Fraser had to do things for Joe Pesci to get his thing, but it was the conversations between them. The conversation about Brendan Fraser, about Monty talking about his dad leaving, and then at the very end, whenever Simon admits that he basically did the same thing to his kid, that was the poignant part of the movie. That was because then Monty had to make a decision, of how he actually felt about Simon and go from there. And so it's not, and that's I think sometimes in our ADD culture where we have to have action, 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 that we lose the human interaction of people being able to talk to each other and communicate with each other.
Yeah, another movie that kind of comes to mind that's very similar to this is like Remember the Titans. Uh, and it's I think Remember the Titans did so well because it was, I mean, such a racially charged time frame. And then you have that movie that come out that kind of unifies people. But I kind of think that's more what this movie was trying to do was kind of think of you have high class people and you have low class people, and the way that they look down on people and trying to make those high class people realize that hey that they are still human beings and people, and regardless what you think of them, and even I don't know, it kind of made me think a little bit even about the political climate that we're in today and some of the parallels that it kind of drew in the movie.
Remember the Titans also has Denzel. That usually helps.
It does. It does have Denzel.
make a good movie.
Denzel does make a lot of difference there too.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. I want to add though, like I talked about how I was afraid this was going to be another one of those comedy movies that wasn't really funny and didn't hit. I feel like Ernie's not gonna like this comparison, but I felt a little bit when I was watching this, going back to like Trading Places, just the fact that there was an idea where I thought that there was a good idea that they could have taken with, and they put too much stupid comedy in it that didn't land. And this, they didn't do that. There is funny parts in this movie. There's parts where I generally laughed out loud, like the part where he opens the bathroom door and he's like, "Holy!" and he's like, "You think so?
Yeah.
I thought it was Garden Variety." That and the
Not-
condom quote. The condom quote where he's like, "Can I borrow a condom? No, but you can have one."
Yeah, though this is more closer going to Dead Poet Society, where
Yeah, I mean, there are funny
where there's
parts in
humor.
this.
Yeah,
But it's not it's not like you're at a serious point in the movie and then they just inject dumb humor that that takes away from it. There, it is, it just adds, it's just something there that adds to the movie. But at the end of the day, it's still a movie with a great meaning, although it has a sad ending.
I
Well,
think they use to me the comedy part is to endear you to uh, the character of Simon, because most people, like the movie would say, wouldn't give Simon the time of day as being homeless and being a bum, And I think by using the humor, that makes the audience fall in love with him and be able to listen to more to what he was saying. That's kind of the way I viewed that.
but majority of the comedy that took place in this movie was 100% from Joe Pesci's character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Then Patrick Dempsey's or whatever was the second one
Yeah,
that came about it.
A lot of the other ones I didn't really think about, but majority of the ones that I remember were from Joe Pesci's character. Even to some of his, like in the courtroom at the beginning of the movie, with him going back and forth with the judge.
I mean, that's just, I said earlier I was lukewarm on Joe Pesci because I don't want to say I just don't like him. There are roles like Goodfellas where I don't like him in, but he can be really good. I mean, I understand why a lot of people like him. He can be very funny.
Yeah,
See,
he did.
Yeah, the comedy, the comedy / serious role, like My Cousin Vinny, also, where again he is playing a comedic part, but he's also be able to wield the seriousness also in that too. Where I'm sorry, I'm 6'4", but to see him as a bad guy at being 5 foot whatever he is in all these gangster movies, because he knows how to drop F-bombs all the time and has that accent all the time, I'm like, thump, let me just thump you on the nose and get you out of my face.
My dad said he's really good in that new gangster movie with De Niro. What's it called? Irishman? It came out in like 19.
The Italian, the Irishman.
Yeah, The Irishman. He said he's like not what you would. He's like complete opposite of his Goodfellas. I haven't seen it, but he said it was like complete opposite of his Goodfellas character.
Kamei watched it the other day, and she said it was really good.
It's just another one of those movies. Well, like I said before, when you get over 3 hours, it's a commitment.
Yeah, it's a Scorsese movie.
I can't do what you and Kamei do all the time, where y'all just start a movie and I'm not. There's not a problem. I'm saying there's nothing wrong. I'm just saying, like when I start a movie, I do not like stopping the movie unless I'm just like really bored.
Yeah, see, if I don't do that, then I don't watch movies because it's fitting time.
No, I mean, yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. I just, you're better man than me. I could not do it. That's partly why I don't start. Even though there's a lot of movies I like that are 3 hours over, but anyways, all right, let's get on to the movie. So Montgomery Monty Kessler is a senior majoring in government at Harvard University and sharing a house with friends, art student Courtney, womanizing radio disc jockey Everett, and neurotic medical student Jeff. So the movie opens up, and we've talked about this before with, movies taking slow, taking their time to get through it. But I mean, the movie opens up, you learn, about the four roommates, and you learn about Monty's character and his thesis and his ideas towards government and everything. So it kind of hashes out all that to the plot pretty quickly.
I like how they give you Harvard. You know that they're at Harvard. I mean, they make that perfectly clear. And for me, again, flashbacks. They start with the song "She Sells Sanctuary" by The Cult, which is like one of my favorite songs from the '80s. And so when it starts to kick in, I was like, oh man, here we go, let's go. When he's doing that running scene, now I gotta say, if he's running figure eights between your rowing team, then either he's a far superior athlete to those guys, or those guys need to become better athletes than what they're doing. That's for sure.
Or is it a thing where they're kind of like supposed to be keeping a pace and he's just kind of sprinting between them? I've never been a part of a rowing team, so I don't know.
Yeah, me either. I'd sink the rowboat, so it's they wouldn't let me on there. But it also shows that relationship between him and I can't remember what the girl's name is, which I'm like, man, why did she sit and stick around and wait for him? I'm like, he didn't give you the time of day, and you sat there and waited on him. I'm like, that just makes me mad when I see stuff like that.
I like her a lot. She was in West Wing. Not enough. She's only one season, but I liked her character a lot.
But watch the movie The Cutting Edge. We'll watch that one time, and she's fantastic in that.
I think this was the first thing I'd seen her in.
You should have watched The West Wing, Dakota. You would like The West Wing.
The West Wing? I'll put it on my list.
It's a TV show.
Oh yeah,
it's short. It's short. It's short, so that it's only an hour long. So that way you can sit through an episode without like having to get up.
Yeah. What, you want me to watch a 3-hour movie? But I'll watch 3 1-hour episodes like it's nothing.
No, I really don't do that all that often. Actually,
no, I'm just saying in general. That's what people do. Like we can't sit through these long movies, but we'll sit binge watch a whole season of a TV show.
I think the most impressive thing you've ever told me was when you binge watched the last season of Stranger Things in a weekend or something like that.
No. It wasn't a weekend. It was one night. No, it wasn't the most recent.
And every episode was a movie.
No, it wasn't the most. It wasn't the most recent season where every episode was like an hour and a half long. It was another one of the seasons where the episodes were. I mean, they were still like 50 minutes, but they were more normal. But yeah, I got home from work. This was when I was still living at home. I got home from work and I started it, and about 2 a.m. I was like, might as well just finish it, and I did.
Come on.
Hey, when I went on ADHD medicine one time, it was Adderall. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what Adderall was. I took it at like 9 p.m.
Oh, man. Wow.
48 hours later, I'd watched like 2 seasons.
Broke it down. We're writing notes about every single minute of the show, too.
Yep.
Hey, I got a lot done that night and day.
I bet you did. Oh, my word.
Also, this is. I think we get introduced to like the relationship between the professor and Monty. Also, and you can see that this is post Reagan, post George Bush, Dad Bush, because I mean that we start.
Please don't say Dad Bush.
Bush Senior.
Bush. Well, he's not a senior though. That's the thing. He's not senior.
I don't know. You come up with something besides Dad Bush. I don't ever want to hear that again.
Sorry, George Herbert Walker Bush. How about that?
We go.
There you go. The one-term president. You know, but there's a crack about Dan Quayle. I think going up to the upstairs room of the guy who ran off to Bali, they had a little picture of Dan Quayle. You know, just this whole entire, I guess you would say uber Republican, high capitalist type of mentality. You could see that this is, coming off of those 3 presidencies, and now we're in kind of the Bill Clinton era at that point in time. So you kind of see that how they took this movie to, go from, the individual it's all about the individual, this, they're strong, you can do anything. And then it shows, well, sometimes circumstances like asbestos, kind of gets you type of thing. And so, you can tell the time, and we'll in the next paragraph, we'll really get to be able to show what era of time this is too.
Oh yeah. I kind of thought about it, especially because in all of the scenes that you go through here, just kind of thinking of not even then, but how much it kind of related to where we're at in politics now, it just, I don't know. There's a lot about this movie that made me think about stuff.
Well, while Monty is working on his senior thesis, which takes a pessimistic view of citizens on public assistance, a power outage ruins his computer's hard drive. When he rushes out to print a backup copy of his thesis, he trips on the street, breaking his ankle, and drops the thesis down a grating into the boiler room under Widener Library. There, Monty finds a homeless man resembling the writer Walt Whitman. Burning his thesis page by page, he calls the campus police to arrest the man, but they are unable to recover the thesis. Talk about 1994. You're of this computer, the hard drive, so you have to go print out the thesis.
I mean, first of all, before you even have it blow up, he gets on like it's MS-DOS. There's not Windows or anything like that. It's MS-DOS that he's getting on this, and you're just like, I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, this is 1994. I had a desktop. I didn't use MS-DOS, so I'm like, come on. I mean, there is Word out there, or at least Word Perfect or something like that, but not that. But then even better later on was when he's printing everything out on the dot matrix printer. I mean, you haven't
Yes, it
heard
is,
anything.
dude.
You haven't lived until you sat there and waited for a paper on dot matrix with the holes on the side of the page so it can reel and keep on going. You just sit there and you're just sitting there waiting for
Especially
it.
they're printing out what 80 something pages or
Oh,
50
yeah.
pages.
Yeah.
Also, in 1994, are we supposed to know who Walt Whitman looks like or what Walt Whitman looked like?
I think so.
I'll be honest, I didn't pick up that parallel.
Yeah, I just like okay.
Well, they're hammering it over and over about Walt Whitman.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
of course,
you get it throughout the movie, like, hey, but like, you know, when I first saw him, that's not like, oh, he looks like Walt Whitman.
No, I think whenever they start talking about the books and things of that nature, I think it starts hitting there. Of course, they throw it in early, and whenever Patrick Dempsey's on the air, and he first mentions about the ghost of Walt Whitman, like the very opening scene when he's on the radio, he talked about that. And again, I don't pay any attention. I don't pay attention to it only after a while, that when they start hitting over and over and over again, and he's reading Whitman and things like that nature, that you go, okay, that's what they're talking about there. But again, it wasn't like obvious. But again, when they showed the book, I think early in the movie, and it showed the portrait of Whitman on there, you're like, oh, okay, that's what they're seeing. They're seeing Joe Pesci run around the library, and that's what this ghost is.
Okay, yeah, I must have missed that because I didn't really see it. I didn't pick up on that.
Which, if all it takes is you going down to the basement and walking by the door, how did not? I mean, Joe Pesci must be literally invisible. How did that room not get detected even earlier?
He had a lot of stuff there, so he had been there a while.
Saying. Yeah, especially when they evicted him and Monty and all his friends were going through his stuff. And it wasn't just a little pile; it was a huge pile of stuff that they were going through.
Like he had been there a while.
Yeah,
but I think they kind of also put out about how intelligent he really is immediately, because he didn't keep the thesis. I mean, he got rid of it fairly quickly and moved it off somewhere else.
Yeah,
you know, and I really like the fact that they did that. You know, I mean, like you said, I mean, this is the whole thing about conversations between, you know, upper class people and lower class people, and I think they immediately tried to paint the picture of him that, hey, he's really not that dumb. He's actually pretty smart. You know.
Well, they also paint him as a character that you don't like.
Okay, because they immediately come out as an alcoholic.
It's almost like we're the people that you know, that are kind of like Brendan Fraser. Like they don't want us to view him in a likable stance immediately, so they make him someone that you don't like, and then as the movie goes on, you go to really like him, just like Brendan Fraser's character.
Yeah, exactly. That was the thing. You had two characters that you initially didn't like, and then you see the growth of both of them go through that, and that was probably one of the good parts of the movie there.
But it's also throughout the entire movie, they're not just building. It's not just their relationship, and it's not just them working on, you know, Brendan Fraser's character, and I'm having them be like, oh, okay, well, you know, these people really aren't that bad. But you also have the flip side of that also, but with, you know, Joe Pesci's character, with the fact that, you know, he left his mother and son and working through that, you know, that part of it, showing that, you know, I really like the fact that it wasn't just you just had the upper class person who's getting the reckoning. You really have both people kind of coming and meeting in the middle.
And I thought a wise decision, and I know this is going way before we get there, was to not have the reconciliation with the son, because just the son had every right to be upset and angry with his father, especially since he hadn't seen him. Well, I mean, what Pesci said that the son was born in 63, and then he went off to the Merchant Marines the same year. So who
94.
knows? Yeah, and so who knows if the son has even? I don't even know how the son knows what he looks like. You know, and so
we don't know that he does. I mean, maybe he just kind of takes it like, oh, they say this is your dad, so he's like, okay.
Well, I mean, he did have pictures, because even Joe Pesci had the picture in the little thing.
There's also no payoff, like, you know, like we come to find out there was like a legitimate, like, real reason, like, okay, it makes sense why he had to go off, like, you know. There's not that reason like, oh, I mean it was a bad thing for him to leave. I mean, he just left.
He just left. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, be honest with me. When he started talking about him leaving, were y'all not expecting him to come out and say, "Hey, kid, I'm your dad"?
If Joe Pesci were
like,
Joe Pesci were taller, maybe, but with
Yeah.
Brendan
like,
Fraser
he would be
being
Brendan Fraser's dad.
yeah.
No,
I was
that
kind
thought-
of expecting it.
No, that thought never ran through my head.
that it didn't happen that way. I was kind of expecting it, but I thought it would have taken away from it had that happened.
Of course, you know, maybe that's I did read some of the details about the movie before I actually watched the movie, so maybe that's part of it. But no, I never thought about that. But in court, Monty learns the man's name is Simon Wilder. Although Simon manages to get the worst of the charges dismissed, he is held in contempt, for which Monty pays the fine. Despite Simon's anger over Monty having him arrested, they work out a deal. For every service Monty provides, Simon will return 1 page of his thesis. Monty takes Simon to the house, where he lets him stay in a broken down van in the backyard. Dakota, you talked about, you know, they making make sure you know that Joe Pesci's character is pretty smart. The whole court scene is a great example of that, and they infuse it with comedy to make it, you know, work. But you know, he gets these charges dismissed, you know, with his knowledge of the law and everything, and but he's also doing it funny, you know, when when he's the only one that stands up, when he's like, does anyone want to plead not guilty, or stands forward. But you know, again, this is where I think Joe Pesci, another just one of those scenes where Joe Pesci really shines in the movie.
Yeah, this whole interaction, even leading into immediately following this, when he opens up the newspaper and he takes all of the newspapers out and then starts selling them, and he's not even reading the stories or the articles in the newspaper. He's just calling it out, and then just going about selling it. You know, it was I think it really, you know, kind of like you said, brought that humorous side of it that kind of brings that humor into it, but then also kind of sets up the character, and even kind of sets it up as a you know, a little bit less of like a more unlikable character here.
What was it he said? The best country in the world, it was a donation. Is that what he said?
Yes.
Yeah, a donation.
But yeah, best nation in the world is donation.
Which that whole entire thing, which again shows Monty something too. Though here he gets a quarter for free, so he can put it in the newspaper. He grabs all the newspaper. Now he's selling. I mean, he's showing them what economics is about. You know, Monty just doesn't want. Monty's just offended by it because it's not what he would do or anything like that.
Is it economics, or did that guy just steal 10 copies of the paper?
Well, you know, supply. Well, do our businessmen not steal a lot of stuff?
I'm not saying that they don't. I'm not saying that they don't. However,
I think he truly makes it the American way. I mean, a different version of stealing stuff is having 7-year-olds in Indonesia make tennis shoes and then put a swoosh on them and then make monies off that. I mean, you know, but that's neither here nor there. But you know, but again, Brendan Fraser does. They both play that same U.S. economic game with each other with the exchanges of goods too. Because that's the one thing which is ironic about the newspapers. For the most part, Joe Pesci's or Simon didn't want a handout. He wanted to earn what he got, and that's why he was like, you know, one for you give me this, I'll give you that type of thing. So there's a lot of give and take. Like for using the van, he was going to make it work again for Patrick Dempsey's character, you know, that type of stuff. So you get and then just so I like that idea, even though, you know, he didn't do much for the for the paper. He just had the paper. But I still like that he so it showed that build that that he had some honor about him, and that's when, you know, you build this honor with Joe Pesci's character, and then boom, I left my son when he was born. Then you're kind of gutted by that too.
Well, over time, Monty and Simon become close friends. Monty confides in him about his absent father, and Simon helps him see poor people like himself as human beings. He also shows Monty his collection of stones, each one representing a significant memory from his life. Something it's probably small, but something I liked is it could have been something where Simon's just staying in the van and they just, I guess, talk, and that's how they eventually build. I like the fact that Monty and him are going to all these places together, and it's like you, whether it's at the library, whether it's in the classroom with the professor, but they're going all these places, and you're just kind of seeing this friendship evolve like in real time.
God, yeah, the telling them to carry the books, and Monty was just 'cause Monty didn't want to depend on a guy like that, and you do see the part that build up, and that was good to see. And again, that's what helps build this whole entire arc is that they're around each other 24/7. You can slowly see, no pun intended, the ice melt away around Monty as he keeps on looking outdoors and keep on looking outdoors, and but throughout the whole entire movie, he cared what other people thought, whether it was the professor or whether it's that one roommate. That's what kept him from bringing Simon inside. It took a long time for him to realize, hey, this is a human, and not just you know an ant or something like that.
Yeah, which goes back, even in this scene, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, where you know, hey, you gave me a blanket, like I want to do something for you, and it kind of opens up that conversation. And even when they sit down on the park bench, I got a friend who sleeps on that bench over there, and them talking about it, and then Monty initially, you know, being closed off, but even like Sam being able to take that thesis and being able to kind of use it to make Monty open up, being able to use the fact that he kind of holds all the cards here, and he's forcing Monty's character to be able to open up to him, because I think he realizes that, oh, okay, you're not going to open up to me about your childhood. Sure, that's fine, whatever. I'll just leave, and you'll never see your thesis again. And it kind of forces Monty to open up to somebody that he normally wouldn't have done that to. And even then immediately following that, you see that tension kind of break between them, and they start throwing snowballs at each other, and just kind of go into more of a playful relationship than it is this, hey, like, business transaction.
This is where we also get the scene in the classroom with the professor, where and obviously it's important for political stuff. I mean, Dakota, you saw this on TikTok, I'm sure. But the big thing here is you're getting. I mean, the professor is the mentor to Monty, so he is. I mean, they prior to everything that's happened in the movie, they shared that same ideology, that pessimistic view that Monty was writing his thesis on. So then you get this confrontation between him and the professor and Simon, and you see where Monty's. It's kind of, again, in real time. You see Monty's view kind of change, where he views more of what Simon believes now instead of what his mentor / professor believes. It's a critical point in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things that people complain about college, is that you have professors that live in this academic bubble world, but don't actually pay attention to what's going on in the real world. And from being an educator, I've seen professors that have been in college for 30 plus years that haven't seen a classroom since, like, they were in their early 20s back in the 70s, and yet they're sitting there talking about these things. The same thing with this professor. He has these ideals, but he's been sitting behind his desk in Harvard, teaching the same thing the whole entire time. And the speech was great, but the best part, because I've seen it so many times, especially being a history major, is when Joe Pesci says, "It's a trap, don't do it. It's a trap, don't do it." Because professors love to set you up, and because as a 18 to 22-year-old, you're in those college classes and you think you are freaking smart, and you're going to sit there and you're going to say this stuff,
especially at Harvard.
Yeah, and then you say something, man, and you go, "Man, that may be the most profound thing an 18-year-old has ever said in their life." And then, pow, 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 you get shot down. You're like,
Yep.
I'm a complete moron.
I mean, to be fair though, these kids are probably in their mid to late 20s. I mean, he's going for his doctorate at this point.
What? Is he?
I mean, he's writing his thesis for his doctorate.
See, that's why I couldn't understand if that's just because if he's I was thinking that at Harvard you had to write a thesis. Period.
Yeah, I think so.
But I could not again. I ain't never been to Harvard. Only been to Harvard on the Hill.
I ain't never been to Harvard.
No, I ain't never been. I have been to Harvard, but not just for visiting sake. But so that's one thing I don't know how Harvard works. Don't care how Harvard works. But if that's the case, then they should have aged those characters a lot more than they did.
Yeah, but I did. The whole reason that I did was because.
Well, it says here that you don't have to write a senior thesis to graduate, but it's often encouraged and required for certain concentrations or for achieving honors, which is what he was going for.
Yeah, the whole entire thing was about
with honors.
Okay,
so he's a regular college student. Obviously not a regular college student because he's at Harvard, but. I mean, he's regular. Like I'm in my first few years of. I'm not in graduate school.
He's a senior. Yeah, he's a senior.
He's a senior. A regular senior.
I guess I thought he was going for his doctorate because the other guy was going for his his medical thesis, medical doctorate.
I think so.
He was trying to get into med school. He wasn't in med school yet.
But even then, though, you have to go through through your master's and all that stuff before you get to. Anyways, this is splitting hairs. But
what was Courtney's major?
I don't know.
Was it architecture?
Speaking of which, she
seemed
really
like an art student?
Yeah,
or philosophy, maybe, or art, probably art student.
That's a good use of money to be a philosophy student at Harvard. That's a real good job. A good waste of money there.
Hey, some of these people are majoring in French.
I can't remember. I think
French. Okay.
I think it was like that 70s show or something. I don't know. The daughter was like, I'm going to major in philosophy or something. And the son's like, that's great. They just opened all them philosophy factories.
Speaking of Courtney character, though, isn't it a little weird that she's living in college with 4 male roommates at Harvard?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I mean, because you're talking about, a liberal campus anyways. So I don't think that, and again, we're also at the point where there's more not as conservative sexually in the early to mid 90s also.
Yeah.
So it's not as taboo looked upon.
I mean, they pretty much show it here. I mean, if you can pay rent, you can live there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's an open room and you can pay rent. You can live there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, no, I guess I saw it a little weird. Maybe I guess it's maybe because of the section of the country we live in.
Well, Monty's roommates begin to like the arrangement as well, with Courtney appreciating Monty's newfound open-mindedness and Everett giving Simon wine in exchange for repairing the van. However, Jeff refuses to let Simon stay in the house's basement on a particularly cold night in case of his parents visiting. When Monty lies to Simon about why he can't come in the house, he ends their deal and leaves. So, again, some cool character development there. You get Brandon Fraser's character that comes in. He knows it's going to be cold. He wants Simon to stay there. Have the whole thing with Jeff. And again, Jeff's kind of a character. He's kind of like Monty, with his views and, pretty dislikable. But you end up, having a little bit of a redeeming arc at the end. But, he could have easily thrown Jeff under the bus when he went to explain why Simon couldn't stay in the basement, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the second biggest turning point for Monty. You have the schoolroom scene with the debate between Sam Wilder and the professor, but then you have this moment because you see even like after he lies to him and he goes up into his bedroom afterwards that he was pretty bothered by the fact that he did it, and sometimes it and especially in life, and then when you go through things, it's when people make mistakes is to realize, oh, I don't want to do that again because I don't want to feel like that again. And I think
Sam Wilder, by the way.
Is that not his name?
Simon.
Simon. I keep calling. Do I keep calling him Sam? Sorry.
I don't even know where. Well, you said Sam Wilder. You had a first and last name. I don't even know where that came from.
His last name is Wilder, is it not?
Yeah, I thought his last name was Wilder.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, his last name is Wilder. Okay, his first name is Simon.
So you got you got that.
Sorry.
So
I had the S.
No, that's all right. No, you don't have to apologize at all.
No, I was like, where did he get the Wilder? Okay, yeah, his last name is Wilder. I forgot about that. So that makes
Monty,
more sense.
stop jumping on people's mistakes. My gosh.
But yeah, I think because even after this, he kind of lashes out at Monty kind of lashes out at Courtney up there in the bedroom, and I think that this really made him realize, and hey, I don't want to feel like this again. I shouldn't have done that, and that a regret wasn't a week later or a day later or oh my gosh, like I'm never going to see my thesis again. It was it was pretty immediate.
Yeah, but it took him a while. But I mean, he didn't go search. Still didn't go search for him. It wasn't until his thesis showed up, which I guess that's the next part that we'll talk about. So, but yeah, he feels like, again, he sees his mistakes, but he still hadn't figured out how to correct it. But I also like the negotiation that Simon had with Patrick Dempsey's character. For the van, he said I'll fix your van for 8 bottles of wine. And Patrick said 4. He said 8, 6, 9. Okay, 8. And so, so that was I like that little type of negotiation too.
Yeah, you didn't like Patrick Dempsey's character in this? I liked him a lot.
No,
I like Patrick Dempsey. I thought when my wife was watching Grey's Anatomy, I thought when he died and came out of the show, it kind of killed the show.
Yeah, he was all right.
What season did he die in? 35?
I don't know, like 14,000. She watched it like nonstop for like 4 months at one point, and she's like, "I'm halfway through it."
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
You will talk about a commitment to sit down and watch something. That's a commitment right there. That and Supernatural.
It's so funny. Supernatural, I watched the first season, and I really liked it, and then never went and watched anything else. Like, just didn't. I don't know why.
My daughter has watched every episode except the last one. She refuses to watch the last one because it can't be over if she doesn't watch the last one. So she still.
Yeah, that's the denial. That's the denial.
Yeah, that's what 100% what she is that she gets way too attached to fictional characters.
I'm kind of the same way about. I will watch series finales, but once I watch it the first time, I would never rewatch it. I don't. Psych. I don't think I've seen that since the first time I watched it.
Did I? Sorry, because we're going to go off on a tangent. Did I send you the reel with Val Kilmer or whatever? And what is it? Carlton said he must really like you. He said, we've worked each other all these years, and he's never said a word to me. Val Kilmer.
Wasn't he like the Dobson character that they always mention, but they never show?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, while everyone goes home for Christmas vacation, Monty stays to recompose his thesis. Simon sends a friend to deliver the thesis. He reveals where Simon is staying, but says he does not want to see him. Monty finds him living on the street, coughing and wheezing due to years of exposure to asbestos in the U.S. Merchant Marine. Yeah, I mean, this is the point where you obviously see Monty. I mean, he stays home for Christmas. He's got a lot of work to do because he's decided to completely change his thesis. So it's a big. We've talked about turning points. This is a big turning point for his character. But seeing him finding Simon like that was pretty tough.
Yeah, I think, and I think, and I know that you had the whole like he didn't ever go look for him type of thing. But I also think part of the reason he didn't go look for him, because initially, had this been at the first of the movie, Monty would have immediately went and looked for, Wilder or Simon. He would have immediately set out to try to find him. But I think this is where you kind of get the tease of him you see him wanting to change his thesis because he's not concerned about where the rest of the thesis is. He's not really concerned about what's happened to it, and he's already, I think, like you said, already considered it. I don't think he's said it, has he? about completely changing it. But I think this is where he's already considering doing that, and that's part of the reason why he didn't go try to find him. It's been also Boston and the whatever the city that is with Sex about. It's a fairly large area. How do you want to go try to find somebody in that area without internet or anything like that?
Well, I think this also this kind of it encapsulates that one quote that Simon wrote, on the paper that really kind of led to the whole change of Monty about not again coming from Whitman again. You shall not take things at second or third hand. You need to listen to all sides and filter them for yourselves, type of thing. To paraphrase that whole entire thing. So that goes back to, hey, you're reading all this stuff, but look with your eyes. Look, see what's going on, and that's where you get the true, you know, the true education that Monty gets is from living through other people's lives and living through, like listening to Simon talk about the Merchant Marines. That's why he can't get a job. It's not that he doesn't want to get a job. He can't get a job because he can't because of his lungs and things of that nature. And so that kind of again opens his eyes to different things. And it's weird how when you go through parts of your life thinking something, and then just because you go somewhere else and opens your eyes. Like for example, I remember the the Persian Gulf War like in '91, and I was like, heck yeah, let's go bomb the crap out of people. This is great. You know, then where I was working after 9/11 was in Texas near Fort Hood. So when 9/11 happens, then we deploy all these men to Afghanistan and Iraq. And then it became personal because then I saw these kids whose parents were being sent overseas to different places. I saw one kid whose dad was in Iraq, mom was in Korea, and he had to watch over his brother and sister. We had a whole entire processional that drove in front of our high school when it was the first parent that was killed in that in enduring freedom. And it changed my eyes about a lot of stuff because before that it was second or third hand. I wasn't seeing anything like that. And there's a lot of other things that in that time of my life that I changed a lot of my perspective on things just due to the fact that I grew up in the suburbs of Houston in lily white suburbs, and this is what I knew, and that's all I knew, you know. And everybody that I was around, we all thought alike, we all saw the world the same, and so it was easy for all me and all of my friends to sit there and look at everything the same way, just like Monty and his friends. They look at things all the same. And so it takes something from the outside for it to be personal or to be able to just open you up to something completely different. And that's what that's the beauty. That's the whole entire beauty of the story and the quote that he gave from that Simon gave from Walt Whitman.
So, well, so it's going back to the whole he might be his dad thing here. This is where I think this is why I first kind of teased when they're sitting there didn't he take him to the doctor, to the hospital in this scene? And
never took him to. Oh wait, yeah, he did take him to the doctor.
Yeah, so he took him, and then she sits down and looks at him and says, I guess your father's ever told you about his condition or something like that. And then he says that he's just a friend or something. I think that was where, because you go from this scene into the next scene that we're about to talk about, where he allows them to live upstairs and they have their conversation. I think that's kind of where I thought that whole he might be his dad thing came from.
Well, Monty allows Simon to live in the house and refuses his offer of a new deal. Simon gets disability benefits to help with the rent, while Monty decides to completely rewrite his thesis. Courtney and Everett are supportive of Simon's moving in, but Jeff is still unwelcoming. Realizing the seriousness of his illness, Simon writes his obituary, which reveals that he left his wife and child to join the Merchant Marines. Though initially angry, Monty eventually forgives him, taking him as a guest to a campus pajama party. As Monty watches Courtney dance with another man, Simon encourages him to confess his love for her. Courtney reciprocates, and they begin a relationship.
There was another funny scene that we forgot was when when Monty initially took him to the disability office, he kept deflecting answers. That was another great scene that we missed.
Something about like the proving his date of birth. I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. Prove you were wrong.
God, writing the obituary though, that's someone had to ask me.
That was heavy. That was, and I think the heaviest part of that entire scene, and really from the point where he was in the hospital on, the movie gets kind of heavy because I mean it's he's going to die. You know he's going to pass away. You know it's coming, and it's just a matter of when it's going to happen. And even just the whole scene, where he was like, "Hey, look at this obituary," and it was just the guy's name, no heirs, like nobody to follow after him, died on this day, no funeral, and it's like that guy lived in like 72 years or however long it was that guy lived, and it comes down to a few lines written down in the paper. And I think it kind of, I don't know, it kind of brought a pretty heavy weight to the movie at that point. It kind of, I think, made it a little bit more realistic, especially too, I mean, talking about changing perspectives again, probably to Monty, where he's probably never had to really experience death like that, of a real close person. He might have had family members, but, yeah, he's lost his father. But his father's still out there living somewhere, but he probably hasn't, experienced that finality of death.
Also, it's cool to see him help him with Courtney, trying to encourage him, like, all the quotes he says about love. And you're thinking, well, you left your wife, but, he has that regret and he doesn't want to see Monty lose something, and he end up with regrets like he is.
Well, yeah, didn't he say that you don't want to be the one that you don't want to be a loser? What was the quote that he said?
I don't know. He said a lot of great quotes in this movie. It's hard to wrap all of them up.
It was something on the lines of
it's not try like loser is not trying or something like that.
I'd rather you be I'd rather you not regret it and be a loser. I don't remember what it was. It was a really great quote though.
Well, I mean, he's good at quotes. When he's at the party and he starts talking about love and all this other kind of stuff, and then a co-ed turns around and says, "Hey," and he's like, "That's what really led to his death right there." Because I mean, it was after that night that's when he started dying. So,
Pickett's there's the professor's name.
Well, Monty agrees to drive Simon to visit Frank, the son he abandoned, despite the fact that doing so well would delay the completion of his thesis. All the roommates, including Jeff, who has come to see Simon's humanity, make the long drive. Frank bitterly rebuffs his apology and pretends that he doesn't know him when Simon's granddaughter asks who he is. Before leaving, a heartbroken Simon adds a stone to his collection. This is a tough scene, but it's also an important one. I mean, there's no payoff. There is no Simon's going to go visit his son and they're going to forgive and they're going to hug and it's going to be okay. There's no payoff for him. I mean, he gets what he wants. He sees his son, but it's not, there's no forgiveness there. But at the same time in this scene, you get to see, other characters come full circle for them. You get to see Monty. He doesn't care about his thesis. He cares more about helping his friend. You see Jeff. He wants to go along. He finally is accepting Simon. So it's important all around. It's still tough. I mean, tough. Yeah. Just watching Simon have to go through that.
Simon got his family with the kids, not his son, because they all, especially when Jeff decided to join it. When Jeff saw that Monty put Simon over his paper, and Jeff couldn't fathom it until then. And when he has to ask whether he can come, that was kind of big. But then when he wanted to stop and he wanted to go out, Monty wouldn't let him just die like a dog, just let him go out back and just die, because that is that change in Monty where Simon is a human. He's not just a bum. He's actually a human.
Yeah, I think the hardest part was when the granddaughter came out and the realization sets in for Simon that, hey, like, he's not just missed out on his son's life. He's missed out on the next 2 generations of his family, and there was a lot that he gave up in that moment for it.
Well, Simon's the condition deteriorates on the drive back to the house. The roommates stay up all night reading Walt Whitman to him before he dies. At his funeral, Monty tearfully reads Simon's obituary, where he refers to his roommate, the roommates as his family, and states that Monty will graduate life with honor and without regret. So I said it at the beginning of the podcast, but this got to me, and part of it is I've been in the room with a loved one who was dying. It was of cancer too, so it was very heartbreaking to kind of watch that and just see the pain that someone can be in. But yeah, this scene, I was tearing up pretty bad.
Yeah, the
Which brings me back to no more sad movies. We can only do happy movies from now on.
I mean, like if you've been in the room when somebody takes their last breath, it is a very deep spiritual thing that can haunt you at times in your life. So, but again, that shows again that Simon was with his family, even though it was a brief family. That's who was with him whenever he passed away, and which made the did he write his obituary? The one that he read that they were reading.
Yeah.
Because he bid it on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
I guess he just left the day blank and let him fill in the blank for whatever day. I thought that was funny when I said he bid it on Wednesday.
Yeah, it just. I mean, even the whole scene. There's nobody there. There's just the four roommates that are sitting there around the casket with waiting for them to be buried, and it's like Caleb said, man. I teared up a lot during this scene because I mean it was a very very heavy scene, because you're coming off the heaviness of the fact that he doesn't reconcile with his son,
Yeah.
and then seeing all of that life that he lost out on, and seeing the son just be okay with never seeing his dad again, and then seeing Simon break down in the field like that, and then going and just deteriorating down to this, and dude, it's just. I mean, the last, this whole 5 to 10 minute section of it, I mean, it builds up and it fully accumulates at this point, and it just kind of overwhelms there.
That was another tough part of it because I had the plot, this plot pulled up as I was watching. So I had read this little part about him reading the obituary. So in my mind, I'm picturing him at a church, reading this in front of people, and then he cuts to it. I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, these are the only friends he has.
Yeah, he doesn't. His family's not going to be there. His son's not going to be there for it. His ex-wife isn't going to be there for it. There's nobody. And I mean, homeless people aren't going to be invited to things like this. How are they going to know?
Well,
I don't think they want to go.
Monty meets with his haughty mentor, Professor Pitcairn, and explains why he changed his thesis to a more optimistic subject. Pitcairn accepts his explanation, but informs him that he will not graduate with honors due to his lateness. Monty thanks him for his mentorship. He also returns the Walt Whitman book to Widener Library, symbolically leaving Simon's spirit there. The roommates graduate, and Monty begins his own collection of memory stones. I really love this part of the movie, and Dakota, you've talked a lot about how this reflects kind of today's political climate. The people today, I hate this so much, are so divisive. Where if you don't agree with what I believe, then I hate you, and I absolutely cannot stand that. I mean, politics has always been, divisive, but back in the day, if people would still be friends even if they disagreed.
Mm-hmm.
And today's world is too much not like that, and I absolutely hate it. So to see them have this discussion with the professor and him tell him that I don't agree with your views, but I still respect you. And he even said the line like something like, not everybody agrees, or I can't remember, something like,
yeah, nobody ever agrees with my views as well.
Yeah, so it was a really cool moment. And then, the whole thing with honors, I mean, you can look at it like, well, that sucks. He did this for a friend. He should be able, but I mean, hey, that's part of it. You have deadlines and stuff like that, and you have to meet them. And if you don't, then you don't get rewarded. And that's part of life. That's something you have to accept in life. But there's still that respect there, that handshake where, hey, we may not agree anymore, but I still respect you and you still respect me. And that's cool. I wish more people were like that today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not a very common thing that you see nowadays, and Man, it just I really liked how, you know, even after this, even after like you said that they didn't agree, that Monty stood up and was like, "Hey, like thank you for being a true mentor to me throughout this entire time." Even everything that he's done for me, even though they disagree about it, but even like you said in the end, like it. I really liked him going back to the library and returning the book back, the Walt Whitman book back to him. And then as they're leaving, him bending down and picking up the little rock and collecting the memories. Just I like the fact that you could see that he's still moving on with his life, but he's still looking back and paying homage and reminding himself of, hey, that these people are still human.
Arnie, anything to add before we wrap it up?
No.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the movie. Well, Ernie doesn't have anything to add. Dakota, you have anything to add before we jump on to our rankings?
No, I like I said, I think this movie would have done a lot better. I really think it would do really well in today's climate of where we're at now. But I think given the time period, I think it was a very well written movie and well done movie.
Well, let's go on and jump on our rankings. And Dakota, why don't you just go ahead and kick us off?
Okay, well, continuing in that vein, like I said, I think I kind of agree with you, Suggs, that I came into this with not very high expectations given the ratings that were presented to it. Between all three of the ratings being under 80%, and I didn't really expect it to be that good of a movie. But man, Joe Pesci, I think, knocked it out of the park with this. We've talked about that throughout the entire thing. I think he did a great job. I think Brendan Fraser did a really good job in this movie too. Go showing that being able to show that character development, and man, even this their chemistry together when they were on the screen with one another. It definitely made you. They built two characters that you hated, and then they built it into people that you ended up loving, and were extremely sad for at the end. I think it was very, very well done. I would definitely recommend this to somebody else. I don't know why it's rated so low across everything else. I don't really agree with that. So that being said, I think I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think first of all, it's always pleasant when you don't have high expectations and find something that you really enjoy watching. So that's always nice. But completely just lost what I was gonna say. I had in my head what I was gonna say. But oh yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things I love about watching movies is just the emotions that you can have, whatever that emotion may be. I love a movie that can make you feel emotions, make you feel something, and this definitely made me feel something. I felt very sad at the end, but I enjoyed the characters and everything, and it was really good. And I'm going to give it an 8.25.
I almost went with that, and I bumped it up.
Well, I was going to go 8, and then I bumped it up. So,
Ernie,
are you going to give it a score and then bump it up too?
No, I'm not going to give it a score and bump it up. It's an enjoyable movie. I thought, like I said, the best part of it was the chemistry between Brendan Fraser and Joe Pesci. Them alone to me were kind of annoying. Joe Pesci's accent started to bother me a little bit. Just I guess he was being extra, which is fine. Like I said, the side characters didn't do much for me. So I mean, it is an enjoyable movie. I don't think it's a great movie. I think it's an enjoyable movie. It was an emotional movie at parts. Yeah. It was a good movie. So I'm going to give it a 7.5.
All right, so that's a 8.5, 8.25, and a 7.5. That averages out to. That's not right. Hold on.
8.08.
8.08. Ernie, where does that? I don't know what I did, but I got 10 point something. I was like, that's not right. Ernie, where does that put us on our rankings?
That ties them in 31 with X-Men and Bull Durham.
Okay, there you go. And if you'd like to see that full rankings list, you can go to our website, podpage.com/classic blockbusters. That's podpage.com/classic blockbusters. You can get our full rankings list on there. You can get our individual scores that we give. There's a little bit about us, and of course, all the episodes are on there as well. So please feel free to check that out. You can find us on social media on Facebook, Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast, and on Twitter /X at BlockbusterPod1. We are streaming with a new episode every Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and we appreciate everybody that's been listening. Ernie, is your pick next week? What will we be watching?
I go down different directions, and I almost went really dark this week. But instead, because I'm an educator, I
need something to cleanse the palate.
Well, I think I got it for you. So we are going to watch, I believe it's 1992's Dazed and Confused, since it is a school movie. And I'm a teacher, so I was like, okay, let's find a school movie. So Dazed and Confused.
All right, so that's what we'll be watching next week. All right, anything else to add before we wrap up?
Oh, it's a good show.
All right. And with that, as Ernie says, we'll see you at the movies.